Good evening, everybody. Welcome on behalf of the Indian section to our Sunday evening study class. Before beginning, let's all join together in the universal invocation. O hidden light, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May all who feel themselves as one with thee know they are therefore one with every other. So today we continue with our book study of the Practical Occultism written by Blavatsky. Today we are doing the part 2. Our speaker doesn't need any introduction. I just want to say one small thing. I already introduced to her last time, so no need. I just want to say that she's a very brave girl because this is a tough book to teach. So welcome, Suvralina ji. All the best.
Thank you. As rightly said by you, Vimalji, this is really the toughest book whichever I would have taken up for a talk. When I had started reading this book, I think it's a good book to read. But when you start interpreting and explaining, you automatically invite a lot of questions. And probably that's why in the first session itself, I said, I don't want to answer to any questions. Again, I think we're not ready to answer such questions, at least on this topic, because this is such a deep one and such a practical one. We are on the way towards perfection. We are not yet perfected enough to actually give the apt answer to it. However, we all, as initially when we started this meeting, as you said, there is a book and three of us are, trying to discuss, interpret. Somewhere there are certain literature given to us for absorbing, interpreting at a level where we are, right? But however, this book, since it's very practical, I took it up definitely with a bit of bravery because I wanted to read certain things from the book and add certain stories and day-to-day interactions and activities so that it becomes simple for each of us sitting here to understand it. That is why while I read this small book, Practical Occultism by Madam Blavatsky, I also took help from other texts and scriptures to understand certain, through some stories or similes to get it clear and being understood. Now, the session 2 of today I have taken up as occultism versus the occult arts. The session 2 starts with occultism versus the occult arts. There is a third part to it for daily life. We will see if we would like to go ahead with that. However, this is very important because session 1 was introductory, some definition, basic understanding, basic rules to get into this occult science understanding and in-depth knowledge about it. Now let us talk about occultism versus occult arts. There are certain paragraphs which I didn't like to read because those are very obvious. Somebody who take up this book would understand. But those segments which need explanation, I took it up. You are saying something? Anyone saying something? I would request someone who's not questioning or has doesn't want to speak in between can please keep in.
Yes, please, everyone. Mute.
Please
Mute your
mute
mics,
yourself.
please, everybody.
And so that after the talk, if you want to add something, you can add. Okay, good. Now, it says, the book says, Madam Blavatsky says, which of Hinduism, pure and simple for occultism, through the yarning earth from Stygian gloom, call of the meager ghost to works of light. It will be difficult to understand here if I don't talk about the references here. Now, this basically is talking about how people misinterpret or oversimplify occult philosophy. There are two ideas here. Which of Hinduism? And again, it talks about in the second line, ceremonial magic, according to the rules mockingly laid down by Eliphas Levi, is another imagined alter ego of the philosophy. Now, what are these two terms? Which of Hinduism refers it comes from the Bible. the biblical witch of Endor, who famously summoned the spirit of the prophet Samuel. Here it is used to describe, simplifying this, I'm saying, people do superficial spirit calling practices, thinking that doing so makes them true occult masters. Because it is basically calling out those who chase sensationalism rather than deeper spiritual understanding. So it is not just getting into a superficial practice of spirit calling, thinking that somebody will come and answer, give us some power. No. The other part in this paragraph is ceremonial magic. Here, she talks about Eliphas Levi, a 19th century French occultist who wrote extensively about ritual magic. This suggests that people are following his instructions almost mockingly, thinking that performing rituals equals attaining the wisdom of ancient arhats. I think it is not about any particular religion or any particular belief system. It applies to every one of us. Mostly, people get into the trap of, by doing this, I'll get some power. By doing this, my life will be better. By doing this ritual, people blindly follow, understanding the science and arts of it. So people see occultism through whatever prism their imagination creates. It could be a ghost summoning ritualistic thing, or it will be without grasping the true philosophical core, doing some rituals. This is what this paragraph talks about. Now, she also raises question like, will these candidates to wisdom and power feel very indignant if told the plain truth? It is not only useful, but it has now become necessary to disabuse most of them. Many people, if I explain it, many people claim to be pursuing wisdom and power through occultism, but most of them have completely misunderstood what real occultism or the true spiritual science is about. In fact, uh, with only a very few rare exceptions, everyone who claims to be an occultist is not walking toward enlightenment. They're actually moving toward black magic, sorcery instead. Occultism is meant to be the deep, disciplined study of spiritual laws and self mastery. In the first session itself, we talked about it. If there is no selflessness, if there is no love and compassion for our co-disciples, co-students, if there is no uh, positivity in our attitude towards the people we are sitting with, studying with, and getting this knowledge, if there is no self-mastery, we cannot have deep occultism. It will be superficial. Occultism differs from magic. It's written in this book. Occultism differs from magic and other sacred sciences as the glorious sun does from a rushlight. Now, occultism is compared to the bright, glorious, natural sun, the natural truth, connecting to the immortal spirit, the pure essence of human beings. Magic or the sacred sciences, if I say, they are compared to the rushlight, which is weak, flickering, fragile, dim, which is short-lived. It's not long-lived or not permanent. Similarly, the spirit of man, the divine eternal soul, is also being compared to the human body. Spirit of man is eternal soul, whereas human body is mortal, temporarily being there. That is why we have to understand what are we following. There are 4 out of the many other names of the various kinds of esoteric knowledge or sciences, even in our Puranas: Yagya Vidya, Mahavidya, Guhya Vidya, Atma Vidya. These are all written here in this book. Yagya Vidya is knowledge of the occult powers awakened in nature by the performance of certain religious ceremony. Mahavidya is the great knowledge. Maha, great, big. Mahavidya is the great knowledge, the magic of the, basically tantric worship, which is often described as sorcery, black magic. Guhya Vidya is knowledge of the mystic powers residing in ether. So the mantras, the sound, depending on the rhythm and melody we are using. In other words, it's a magical performance based on knowledge of the forces of nature, if we can talk about. Whereas Atma Vidya is a term which is translated simply knowledge of the soul, true wisdom, which means far more. This last, Atma Vidya, is the only kind of occultism that any theosophist will admire. Light in the path, when we say we would be wise and unselfish, we ought to strive after all the rest of some branch of the occult sciences or even arts. Those are based on the knowledge of the ultimate essence of all things in the kingdom of nature. Because we have read a bit of theosophic literature, we would agree to this. But clairvoyance, symbolized in India as the eye of Shiva. This book says eye of Shiva, and it also says in Japan they call infinite vision. It's not hypnotism, whether good or bad or indifferent, but Atma Vidya sets small value on them. So clairvoyance, which is true spiritual vision, is not the same as hypnotism, which is seen here as a lower or impure. So for everywhere there is a level. Hypnotism is on the lower side, clairvoyance is on the brighter side of it. Hypnotism is basically from mesmerizing and all, byproduct of a distortion of the system, which lacks purity or legitimacy, I would say. But true clairvoyance is referred to as the eye of Shiva. Now, Atma Vidya is the highest path. It includes all the practices only after cleansing them of selfishness and impurity. So, selfishness, impurity, discipline, love, compassion, these all are only for good. No ego-driven motives. Then only we will talk about clairvoyance as an actual practice, actual wisdom. Let me just share a story with you. Like as I did share some stories last time in the last session, I would love to share a few more stories here in this session too. In a village between two mountains, there lived two students seeking power. One followed a wandering magician who taught him how to hypnotize, how to read minds, how to sway people's will. With these flashy new tricks, he amazed crowds, made also good money, and began to feel like a master. The other student found an old sage who lived in silence, meditated for hours, spoke rarely. For years, the student saw no powers, no miracles, no instant results. But slowly, his heart changed. He became calm, clear, wise. One day, when asked what he had gained, he simply smiled and said, I can see clearly now, not with these eyes, but with the eye of truth. It takes time. Clairvoyance takes time. That is the eye of Shiva, the true vision. It cannot come from any technique, any trick. It comes from self purification. That's what Atmavidya is. The first student were chasing shadows, where the second student became the light itself. If you all remember Katha Upanishad, we all have read about how Nachiketa was sent to the house of Yama, the god of death. Instead of being afraid, Nachiketa calmly waited for 3 days without food or water until Yama returned. Impressed by the boy's patience and courage, Yama offered him 3 boons. For his third boon, Nachiketa had asked, what happens after death? What is the nature of the self? When Yama tried to dissuade him, offering wealth, long life, heavenly pleasures, magical powers, everything that could delight his senses, Nachiketa refused. What did he say? These pleasures last only until tomorrow. I seek only the knowledge of the eternal, Atma Vidya. That moment is the essence of Upanishads. True wisdom lies not in powers or possessions, but in knowing the self. which neither dies nor changes. That only through discipline, purity, and surrender of ego one can open this eye of truth. Now, coming to the book, the book talks about two new terms, Vudos and Dukpas. The Vudos and Dukpas eat, drink, and are merry over victims of their infernal arts, and so do the amiable gentleman and the hypnotizers. The only difference between the two classes being that the Vudos and Dukpas are conscious and the sorcerers are unconscious. So these terms, Vudos and Dukpas, these refer to practitioners of dark or harmful rituals.
अंग्रेजी में बोल रही है.
they विमल जी आप प्लीज सबको रिक्वेस्ट कर लीजिए कि if they could please mute themselves.
Actually only you can mute everybody.
Yeah,
We
I'll
are,
just do that.
Better, yes.
Yeah.
One and mute.
Just a minute, huh? People should join actually with the mics off. But anyways, no issues. Coming back. So we were talking about Vudos and Dukpas. As I said, they are referred as harmful, who do harmful rituals. And they know they are using destructive, manipulative forces, hypnotizers, famous figures in medical and psychological history. These are seen as unconscious sorcerers. They think they are being scientific or neutral, but are still manipulating life, mind, and will. So, using power without compassion, understanding a spiritual alignment, whether through ritual or science, is still sorcery. The difference is just awareness. When once the desire for occultism has really awakened in a man's heart, there remains for him no hope of peace, no place of rest and comfort in all the world. He is driven out into the wild and desolate spaces of life by an ever-gnawing unrest he cannot quell. This I have taken from the book. So what do we explain here? When the desire for occultism, true spiritual awakening, which is genuine, it becomes so consuming, the person can no longer find satisfaction in ordinary life. Comfort, social success, religious routines, nothing will soothe him. If the heart is still full of selfish desires or unresolved passions, they cannot yet enter the golden gate. So, how do we do or be on the path of purification? Letting go of ambition for powers or recognition. So if somebody asks, is there any other way out of this spiritual torment? What is the answer? These are the answers. Letting go of ambition for powers or recognition, turning the energy inward towards self-discipline, service, meditation, sacrifice, and choosing love over control, humility over ambition, and surrender over ego. If we don't have ego, if we have humility, and we choose to love, we are self-disciplined, all this lead to the path of purification. The path of Bodhisattva, they call it. I'll tell a story here. There's an old Eastern parable of a man who longs to reach the holy city across a vast desert. He sets out filled with desire, not for the city's peace, but for the glory of reaching it, of being admired for his journey. So he doesn't want to go there to, have peace and experience something. He has this aim that I'll go there, then I'll come back and I'll just show off that, yes, I'd been to this place. People will be admiring, oh, you've been there. So he was setting out with that desire. But that desert begins to break him down. Sandstorms blind him. Thirst burns him and he begins to lose hope. At that breaking point, he meets a quiet figure sitting in the sand, unmoving. The traveler is asking him, Why aren't you walking? The figure smiles and says, because I stopped trying to conquer the desert. I started listening to it. I let it reshape me. That is when the traveler realizes the journey isn't outward, it's inward. The golden gate doesn't open by force, it opens by surrender. Let me just mute a couple of my brothers and sisters who are talking. Okay, fine. Okay. Now, so what absorbing story it is? When the figure says, I stopped trying to conquer the desert, I started listening to it. That is the journey is all about. Not everyone is meant to become a Mahatma, a great soul, a Buddha, an Arhat with spiritual powers. And that is perfectly okay. Instead, one can walk the similar path, studying spiritual philosophy, practicing kindness, and understanding the science of the soul. Even without powers, one can become a modest benefactor of humanity, doing quite good in the world, grounded in truth and service. The extraordinary powers are not rewards or shortcuts. They are byproducts of intense purification and sacrifice and are not necessaries for spiritual impact. There was a gardener who worked silently in the temple gardens all his life. He never performed miracles, never gave great sermons, never became famous. But every morning, pilgrims would find the air in the temple filled with sweet scent of jasmine, the paths cleaned, the water pots full, the flowers fresh. One day a monk said, you are no ordinary man. Your hands have served the divine with more devotion than any mantra I have chanted. That gardener, without siddhis, without titles, was already a saint in action. He didn't want to, kind of people noticing him or, getting some uh, power or attention or becoming a sant, becoming a saint or an adept. No, he was just doing his things with all full devotion. And obviously, he was not an ordinary man. True occultism or theosophy, what we call it, is the great renunciation of self, unconditionally and absolutely, in thought as in action. It is altruism, and it throws him who practices it out of calculation of the ranks of the living altogether, not for himself, but for the world he lives. That is what is written in the book. So, theosophy or true occultism is not about developing powers or gaining sacred knowledge for personal use. It's about the complete surrender of the ego, the renunciation of selfish motives, and becoming a servant of the world. The seeker is forgiven in the early stages while still battling ego and imperfection. But once they're accepted, once they truly commit, they must let go of identity, pride, ambition. I am nothing. I read this sentence on the walls of, I read many sentences on the walls of Bhawali Center, the Himalayan Center, the study center at Bhawali. One thing that caught my attention by Krishnamurti was, I am nothing. They become not a person seeking gain, but a force of goodness, invisible, silent, and deeply impactful. Again, coming to the book, Madam Blavatsky writes, one who is able to follow the silent evolution of the preliminary aspirations of the candidates often finds strange ideas quietly taking possession of their minds. There are those whose reasoning powers have been so distorted by foreign influences that they imagine that animal passions can be so sublimated and elevated that their fury, force, and fire can, so to speak, be turned inwards, but that they can be stored and shut up in one's breast until their energy is not expanded but tuned toward higher and more holy purposes. That's what she writes. Some of the seekers, they believe they can take the intensity of lower passions like lust or ambition and channel them upward, as if same fire that burns could somehow become light just by intent. But these are not energies to be stored or played with. Without deep purification, they remain destructive, even if disguised. What is worse, these individuals often don't even realize they are being influenced. Their reasoning becomes warped. They think they are progressing, but they are just spiritualizing their desires, not eliminating them. This misconception is still very common today in modern manifestation trends. People talk about Kundalini awakenings, misuse of tantric ideas. People believe that passion is equal to power and try to redirect it instead of transcending it through self-discipline and inner clarity. Nachiketa chose the path of the Shreyas, the good, over the prayers, the pleasant. Pleasant is temporary, very short-lived. Good is forever, for good. So Nachiketa had chosen Shreya over prayers. While not directly about passion, it reflects the choice between short-term desire and long-term truth, a perfect complement to the theme. Nachiketa rejected the temptations of wealth, pleasure, and even heavenly rewards. He only asked for Atmavidya, the truth, Atman. Madam Blavatsky writes, they'll simply, by a strong effort of will, put down the fierce flames and keep them at bay within their natures, allowing the fire to smolder under a thin layer of ashes. They submit joyfully to the torture of the Spartan boy who allowed the fox to devour his entrails rather than part with it. It's a very interesting story. I must tell you the story in detail. So instead of purifying or releasing lower desires, some people, when suppress them with willpower, they push them down and pretend that those things are gone. On the outside, they may appear calm and disciplined, but inside, those passions still burn and smolder, untransformed. The reference to this Spartan boy is a very powerful old story. A Spartan boy hides a fox under his cloak during a test of endurance. The fox begins to gnaw at his belly, but he refuses to show pain or reveal the animal and dies silently. Similarly, the aspirants endure spiritual suffering silently, allowing their unhealed passions to consume them from within, just to maintain an appearance of control or spiritual purity. Suppression is not transformation. Repressed energy builds pressure, often erupting later in unhealthy, destructive ways, whether emotional breakdowns, spiritual delusions, or even unethical behavior, masked as divine guidance. True spiritual growth requires awareness, not avoidance. Not hiding, but healing. So it's like hiding a fire in the basement of your house and pretending everything upstairs is peaceful. Eventually, the floor will collapse. Suppressing your darkness doesn't make you light, it just makes you hollow with smoke inside. If you remember sage Vishwamitra, who initially tried to suppress his passions through intense tapas, austerities, but he failed multiple times. Only after going through deep emotional experiences and letting go of his ego, he eventually attained Rishihood. So it is not with suppression. Suppression can never be transformation. We have to face it to understand it. Coming to the book, she says, the master in the sanctuary of our souls is the higher self, the divine spirit whose consciousness is based upon and derived solely. And she also talks about spiritual soul being the vehicle of the spirit, then the personal or human soul, which is a compound. So inside each person, there are three main layers of consciousness. The higher self, the human soul, the manas, and there's this animal nature also. So the higher self, our divine spirit or the master within, which is pure, eternal, it is our true guide. It's often captive in our during our life, dependent on the quality of the human soul for expression. So it's there, but it's not expressed fully because the human soul's quality depends on how the higher self will be expressed. Now, the human soul, the manas, the intermediate self, which is made of our thoughts, values, aspirations, our lower emotions also, the lower manas, it's a battleground between our higher and the lower natures. Now, animal nature is the lower one. Our instincts, desires, passions, ego, these are all rooted in the physical and emotional body. This is where impulses and base urges live. So, human soul is the bridge. It can either rise upward and unite with the spirit or fall downward and become entangled in this animal nature, base instincts. Spiritual growth is the ongoing inner battle where the higher aspirations try to subdue the lower passions. The more we purify and elevate the human soul, the more we can hear the master, our heart's higher self. Then only the higher self will speak clearly within us. It's like if we think of a charioteer, the higher self and the human soul is the chariot, and the animal nature is like wild horses. Generally Bhagavad Gita, we have such examples already explained. If the chariot is well built and steady and the horses are trained, the charioteer can guide the whole journey smoothly. But if the horses are wild and the chariot weak, the charioteer is helpless, dragged into chaos. The human soul is that chariot. It can either carry the light of the divine or be dragged by the wild energy of desire. So in between, either we are controlled by the higher thing or we are not able to control the lower nature. Lower nature is mastering us. So we have to decide. So coming to the book, the higher self or spirit is as unable to assimilate such feelings as water to get mixed with oil or unclean liquid tallow. It is thus the mind alone, the sole link and medium between the man of earth and the higher self. That is the only sufferer. I would really request everyone to get this book, order this book, buy this, borrow it, whatever. But please read it. If we are attending such a session, because I'm just reading a couple of passages, which I thought I should be explaining and discussing and kind of revising also. But if everybody reads it, everybody has his own interpretation. And I think, at the stage of life we would interpret accordingly. My interpretations might not be very apt or very clear to a couple of you who are already advanced than me, or people who have just started knowing theosophy. They might find it, it's very, I'm not able to understand these concepts. But please read, each of you should read it on your own. I will not say it a suggestion, I would rather say it's a request. So the higher self is beyond ego, untouched by our human chaos. Mind, human soul, is the medium. It can rise upward towards spirit or fall downward towards materialism. But if the mind holds on to the base passions, it becomes unfit to receive or reflect the light of the spirit. We can refer to the Bhagavad Gita when it was said, the mantras, from anger comes delusion, from delusion the loss of memory. It was like क्रोध से क्रोधात सम्मोह सम्मोह स्मृति विभ्रम स्मृति भ्रष्टा स्मृति विभ्रम से बुद्धिनाश, destruction of intelligence. Then the destruction of intelligence, man will perish. Pranashyati. This verse outlines how lower emotional pull of the mind downward away from the spiritual path. So it is about, it's already there in, we are referring to Kathopanishad stories, Nachiketa stories. When I'm talking about Nachiketa from Kathopanishad, we are talking about Bhagavad Gita, we are referring to Buddhism, we read about biblical stories. So everywhere it is it is, driving to the same direction. If we cannot have selfless, purified, controlled, control over desires, all these things, if you don't do, it's really difficult to understand practical occultism. Coming to the book, again, one more passage I'll take. It's only when the power of the passions is dead altogether and when they have been crushed and annihilated in the retort of an unflinching will, when not only all the lusts and longings of the flesh are dead, but also the recognition of the personal self is killed out, and the astral has been reduced in consequence to the cipher, that the union with the higher self can take place. When the astral reflects only the conquered man, the still living but no more the longing, selfish personality, then the brilliant Ogygites, the divine self, can vibrate in conscious harmony with both the poles of the human entity, the man of matter purified and the ever pure spiritual soul. This passage is a culmination of deep inner transformation. It describes the final condition required for the union with the higher self. Not just discipline, but complete purification and self-effacement. It teaches that only when passions are dead, not repressed, but transcended, the personal ego is dissolved, not just polished, but killed out. Sometimes we polish our personal ego, but deep within that is there. We have to kill out that personal ego. The astral body, lower emotional nature, is emptied of selfish desire. Then only the divine higher self fully unite with the purified human. Passions must die, not hidden, not controlled. Ego must disappear. The sense of I, me, mine, this must dissolve. The astral become a cipher. No more emotional turbulence or selfish longings. Union becomes possible at this point. The higher self can fully descend and shine through, harmonizing the spiritual soul and the purified human nature. And this is when the seeker stands in the presence of the master self. Coming to the book, how then can it be thought possible for a man to enter the straight gate of occultism when his daily and hourly thoughts are bound up with worldly things? This is a good paragraph. You cannot walk the rager's age toward spiritual union while still entangled in the snares of worldly desire, no matter how noble your external duties may seem. If your inner life is still dominated by ambition, craving, ego, attachment, the straight gate of occultism remains closed. Here, the straight gates refers to what? It's referring to a very narrow, difficult path of inner awakening, which requires total inner focus and renunciation. Worldly thoughts and attachments, even if respectable ones like family duties or professional ambition, they will tie consciousness to the material plane. Occultism is not just a study or a skill, it's complete transformation. In last session also we said, it's not academic training that somebody will just give you. The transformation needs self-realization, self-actualization. To pass through the gate, one must inwardly die to the world. Not abandon duties, but detach from desire, fear, self-centered motives. Here we can refer to King Bharata, who renounced his kingdom and meditated in the forest, but became attached to a deer. Due to that one emotional attachment, he was reborn as a deer. This story teaches us that even subtle worldly attachments can block liberation. As long as the heart is occupied with a small circle like my family, my people, my team, it has no room left for humanity as a whole. The life of occultism isn't about balancing spirituality and worldly affection. It's about transcending the personal together. We can choose serve the self or serve the all. Out of these two only we have We cannot choose both. The true path is not loveless, but transforms love from emotional attachment to universal, impersonal compassion. We often speak of love, but what we call love is usually attachment, warm, beautiful, but limited. Path of occultism asks, can you love without needing? Can you serve without expecting? The path is not against love. It only asks us to expand it until there is no me, mine, only all. That is why no one can serve two masters. The choice is hard, but it's the only way to be free. She talks about karma towards the end of a couple of passages. Karma is a heavy stone splashed in the quiet waters of life, and it must produce ever-widening circles of ripples, carried wider and wider, almost ad infinitum. Such case causes produced have to call forth effects, and these are evidenced in the just laws of retribution. That's what she writes. So karma is like a stone dropped into still water. It will create ripples that will spread far beyond the point of impact. Every thought, word, or action is a cause that inevitably produces an effect. These ripples do not stop with us, they move outward, affecting others, environments, even future lives. The law of retribution or balance ensures that all energy returns, good or bad, according to the nature of its cause. If you remember King Harishchandra, Danveer Harishchandra, he is known for his unyielding commitment to truth and dharma, Satya and Dharma, Satyavir, Dharmavir, Danveer. Even when he lost his kingdom, his family, and lived in hardship, his past karmas tested him, but his actions planted new seeds of righteousness. In the end, his integrity restored everything, showing how even heavy karma can be purified through right action. Karma is not fate, it's a wave returning to its origin. When we act from selfishness, anger, or desire, we drop stones that disturb not just this life, but the lives of others also. When we act from compassion and truth, those ripples become healing currents, quietly restoring balance. Coming to the book, she writes, much of this may be avoided if people will only abstain from rushing into practices neither the nature nor importance of which they understand. No one is expected to carry a burden beyond his strength and powers. Now, rushing into practices or beliefs without understanding is definitely dangerous. One must know their limitations and approach the path with humility and caution. Spiritual growth is always gradual. No one is expected to carry a burden beyond their strength or ability. Only when one is ready, physically, mentally, and spiritually, can the next steps be taken without harm. There was this young aspirant who eagerly sought to learn advanced meditation techniques. In his hurry, he bypassed the foundational practices like self-discipline, humility, understanding his own nature. Eventually, he faced mental turmoil and exhaustion, as his unpreparedness led him into confusion. One wise teacher reminded him, no one can run before they can walk. Know your strength and start from the beginning. Only then will the higher practices serve you. Many of us are eager to begin a spiritual journey, but we often rush ahead before we truly understand the road we are walking. The greatest wisdom lies not in speed, but in quiet confidence of patience. No one asks you to carry a load heavier than you can bear, whether it's a spiritual practice or a daily responsibility. By taking the time to truly understand your own nature, you can avoid the pitfalls of rushing and move forward with a steady, grounded step. She writes, the golden gate of wisdom may get transformed into the wide gate and the broad way that leads unto destruction. Therefore, many be they that enter in thereby, This is the gate of occult arts practiced for selfish motives and in the absence of the restraining and beneficial influence of Atma Vidya. That is this passage is talking about. The golden gate of wisdom is not open to everyone. It asks for, it requires purity, selflessness, alignment with higher spiritual truths or Atma Vidya that we call. If one enters the path of occultism with selfish desires, the gate that was once golden can become wide and dangerous, leading to misuse of occult powers and a spiritual downfall. Many of such examples we have seen how people's spiritual downfall has been because of misuse of occult powers. Without the restraining influence of Atma Vidya, people can easily fall into the trap of using occult knowledge or power, wealth, influence, which leads them away from the true spiritual growth. The easy praise, she writes, the easy praise made by the powers of the age of darkness in this cyclic struggle, and the many delusions under which the world is now laboring. One of these is the relative facility with which men fancy they can get at the gate and cross the threshold of occultism without any great sacrifice. The age of darkness refers to a time when spiritual wisdom is clouded by delusions, false beliefs, distractions. One of the greatest delusions of this age is the idea that occult knowledge can be accessed without great effort, sacrifice, or the necessary spiritual purification. This is such a great delusion. True occult wisdom requires a steadfast commitment. Commitment to what? Commitment to self-improvement, sacrifice. There is no shortcut. Nothing can be obtained by taking shortcuts. I'll give you a story here. I'll tell you a story here. Once upon a time, a king heard of a golden fruit that promised eternal wisdom. The fruit was said to be located in a distant garden, but only those who had endured great trials could reach it. The king, believing that the fruit to be an easy prize, ordered his soldiers to fetch it without understanding the journey. However, many perished along the way because they were unprepared for the hardships. When he finally reached the tree, he ignored their warnings, thinking the fruit would come easily to him. When he finally reached the tree, he found the fruit was withering and worthless. For the true wisdom is offered could only be accessed by those who had sacrificed and grown through hardship. This is a symbolical story. It teaches us what? Spiritual wisdom, like the golden fruit, is not easy prize. It requires effort, discipline, and sacrifice. In today's world, we often hear of quick fixes, shortcuts. Many believe that they can easily cross the threshold into occult knowledge without understanding the true cost of that journey. This is the greatest delusion of this age. The belief that wisdom can be acquired without sacrifice. True wisdom can only come after great effort and spiritual growth. The gate to occultism is narrow, not because it is close to us, but because only those who have purified themselves through trials and hardships can pass through. If we seek shortcuts or believe an easy path, we will only find illusion, and which will lead to disappointment. The path to true occultism, to occult wisdom, is not lined with the gold or glittering lights. Those who are drawn to the golden mystery, without understanding the sacrifice and purification it requires, they'll find themselves lured by false promises, a desire for selflessness, service to others, and renunciation of ego. Only by this, the true path can be walked up in, because it doesn't require desire for power. It only asks for selflessness, service to others, not my, me, or I, for all. That's what occultism versus occult arts talks about in this book. Whatever I could understood, whatever stories I could bring on board for a discussion, I could do it. I'm sure people who have read it thoroughly or who have kind of practiced many other aspects of it would do a better justice But as a speaker, which I could understand, I have only spoken that. I'm sorry if I've disappointed anyone for not explaining it well, but this is what is my understanding. Thank you all.
Not at all. It was so well explained. Actually, I read it twice or thrice, and there was a part which I never understood, and you have actually explained that clearly to me. This part where you have said about clairvoyance. I could not understand why they are talking clairvoyance is the one thing which you cannot get through the other occult ways, but it can come only through Atma Vidya. You beautifully explained it that it is means clear vision. It's not like a power, but it means like a clear vision. So you see facts as they are, you see the reality as it is. So that was very beautifully explained. Also, I think you have taken out the most important sentences and gone through those parts. Obviously, HPB's way of writing is in this is the old English, so it's very
Yeah.
hard to grasp. Like so many things which are like said in the negative, but it means the positive. So it is hard. So I think you have covered most of the chapter. I mean, I think the important parts of the chapter. Now, if anybody
Vimalji,
wants,
Vimalji,
huh,
I had a question. Should I take up this for daily life also? Because that will give us more practical. Should I conduct this as a session 3 as well? Or should
yes,
we leave it?
please.
Okay. Okay.
No, no, no. You must do the next one, and I think you should do it in two parts because it's almost half the book. This daily life is the longest chapter. I
Hmm.
don't think you should rush through it.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think you can do it in two if they have the slots.
Honestly speaking, for this daily life, no, I actually wanted to read. I mean, I really wanted to read those pages in this crowd. I mean, not read as in read, but I really wanted to take off every sentence and every word. But yes, I'll see what justice can I do. I did not
It
take
is,
much.
I know, it is really a beautiful part.
Yes,
I
we
don't
should read
mind
it
it
together.
going into
Yeah.
3 sessions also because everything in this is
I'll
extremely
see.
nice. I,
I'll see if
yeah,
I can do it in third. The 2 more sessions, I'll do it because this is my personal favorite. This book has always been my personal favorite, so that's why I chose it.
good, and you've understood it very well. Okay, now I will open up for any questions and anything that anybody wants to ask. I see your father is here. I think he must be. Is that your father, Narendra
Yeah, he's my
Mohanty? Yeah.
father. Yeah.
He must be a very proud father, I must say that. Congratulations, sir. It's such a nice daughter you have. Okay, anybody wants to ask any questions or add anything?
Suvralina ji, you explained so nicely. Actually, I have also studied that book, but first part is okay, reading and but second part is really difficult, and I'm lucky to have this you lecturing it, shedding light. But the stories you tell, apart from our granthas, where from you get it?
So I'm a reader actually. I'm a storyteller. That's why I read a lot of stories. That is what I can answer. I mean, people who know me personally, they often see me like I'm always a storyteller.
You
This story about that boy with the wolf clothes, where you got it very nice. That was a
Yeah.
lovely thing. I didn't know
Yeah.
that at all.
And most of the stories actually we know, like Harishchandra we know. I mean, Raja
apart
Bharat also we know.
from what we know that many stories are from not from Indian stories. So where from you get it? It's nice, but very nice.
Yeah, I think when you start reading, you will. I mean, stories come to you. So there are many forums wherein we discuss and we share stories. So I kind of noted from. I mean, which are
Like
relevant to this.
Krishnamurti, regarding that wolf story, no? I mean,
Hmm.
Krishnamurti says that a person might be a monk, but he's burning with all that,
Yes, yes, yes.
desires. So what is the
Right,
use
right,
of being a
right,
monk and then having all that?
right.
Actually, theosophy, if it is a process of inside out. Like you turn your envelope inside out. Everything inside has to come out, and then you
Right.
see what is going on inside you. And I think in this self transformations and tools that Vic Houchen has got, where you, like supposing you have anger, then you get aware of the anger, and then you see which part of your body is getting affected by that anger, and then you breathe out the
Hmm.
anger and the effect of that anger, breathe out through your toes, hands, and all. So
Yeah.
that I find is a very nice tool to overcome our situations or difficulties or temptations and all that.
Right.
Madam, I have one question.
Yes, sir. If I may answer that.
We are using the two words transformation and transcendence. How exactly we have to take those words? Whether they go together or one is transformation, another is transcend. We have to step up to the next stage.
See, I would probably say transformation when you completely, completely shift from one place to another. It is like distance and displacement. Or maybe I would say, whenever we talk about from one place to moving to another places, there is a distance to cover, but you displace, right? From one, in step one, you move from one place to another, vertically up. Transformation is when you're completely changed. Transcending is a process. You transcend to a different level, different level. But through that process, you are not completely transforming, but you are transforming bit by bit. And that's what I understand is transcending is when you are kind of going up, but transformation is we always say no, he has transformed into a different person altogether. Transformation is a whole process where you have transformed into something different. Transcending is when you are in that process, you are moving up.
They say the transformation and transcendence, they go together, they say.
Yeah, obviously, when you are transferring means,
Simultaneously together.
yeah, when you are transforming means you are changing. Simply speaking, transformation is change, right? You are somewhere changing, but while you are changing, you are also moving up from a level 1 to level 2, right? A positive change, of course. When you say change can happen negatively also, right? So transcending is when you are moving up for a better thing, for a better version. Transformation is shifted from one state to another.
Means changing a pupa into a butterfly.
Yeah.
It can be a transformation.
Yeah, the form is changed. I mean, a version is changed altogether.
Suvralina, does the word transcend come in this book? Because I think these words have not come. Transcend, transform, both have not come in this book,
No,
no?
transformation
They-
was there. Like suppression is not
Yeah.
transformation. I spoke, no.
Yeah, yeah.
Suppression is not transformation. Suppression is when you are suppressing, you think everything is normal, but deep within it is
huh.
not changed. So you cannot
Hmm.
transform through suppression. Transcending is when I talked about all this, middle bridge. So you have to transcend up,
Okay.
that way. We have already
All
said.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Sushma ji has written a nice comment. Excellent explanation, Suvralina ji. I have read this book 3 times. Whenever I read it, I find new meaning, but you have explained very clear. Thank you.
That is why I said no, for every reader, it has a message. And wherever level I am, I have got that message. People who have already, probably developed to a higher level, they would find it at a very different level. So it is a book for all, from a child to an old person, physically, mentally. It is definitely a must read. Like At the Feet of the Master was my first practical book I read in theosophy, and after that I read this. I consider these two books are like that. Thank you, Vimalji, for
Okay.
this.
So let's end. Thank you so much, sister. Thank you everyone for participating and making this a very nice evening. Asato ma satgame, tamaso ma jyotirgam, मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गम सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ओम शांति शांति Thank you very much. Thank you, sister. Thank you, everyone.